Sheech Herbert's 100 harem. Things had started moving fast, but with a quiet, restrained panic. Spire and Maru was under quarantine. The plates of Galvori and Mulitai were out of position and being moved away from the planet in question. The official excuse is that each of these places have been randomly selected for the equivalent of a fire drill, and that things would end within 24 hours unless something was discovered during the drill. Meaning this seemed like normal, non-panic-inducing situation, and they could make up any excuse they needed to keep the quarantines up as long as they needed. All nice and legal. Forces were moving and mobilizing. Herbert's agents are all being teamed up with numerous different groups, and the wanderers around Centris are up arming and reporting into the Dauntless to be ready to move. The fact that there's a cognito hazard grade threat on the planet, and has been on the planet for a long period of time. The worst of times for Sir Philip to be released to his mission, Herbert mutters to himself, as he vaguely wonders where his mentor is and what poor fool is in the man's path. They're either already converted to the maniac's side, dead or compromised to such a point that they're more an asset to him than whoever they're employed by. Look, I understand that your partners for this are as subtle as a nuclear blast, but you still to have put in at least a token effort to not stand out. If it helps, think of them as walking distractions, Herbert says into his communicator, as all the observation teams that had been slammed together in this joint effort had vastly different methods and objectives. But that's what you get when you slam security forces, police, and intelligence operatives into a single team. Someone there to look scary, someone there to de-escalate, and someone trying not to stand out all standing together. Looks like a mess at best. To say nothing of the... How would he even qualify Lady Basilash's forces to assist on this? Knights Templar of Justice? Judicial Crusaders? Warrior monks of law and order? However they're supposed to be qualified, they make things awkward as hell. They're going to Deus Volt the civilians into a panic when they need things calm. And that's saying nothing about how they're going to make actually stalking down the Darnaxian concurrents harder than hell. Still, you work with the shit you have and not the shit you want. He reminds himself of this as he cows to see the flashes of reports scrolling over his communicator screen. All of them can be generally summarized as his agents being generally ignored as they beg for discretion and subtlety, and Herbert juggles the merits of having all private streams active in the case to enter the silent state and just be ready to kick ass instead. It's not like there's any room or respect for subtlety by these people. "A moment of your time, please?" Jalassi states, and he looks up from his communicator. "Yes," he asks her, and she gestures to the side. He follows and she indicates a high stool. "Ma'am, things are moving quickly. If this conversation is going to require me to sit, then I need to keep working during it. It will not take long. However, I'd rather make eye contact during this," she says, and he sighs before reaching under his coat and placing his finger on a piece of kutha. He didn't need the kutha, but it was mildly distracting to use it. She senses his axiom use and turns to find herself at eye level with him. He has not aged, but he is larger. Temporarily. She is taken aback for only a moment before rallying herself. "I want you to pull back your troops." "Why?" he inquires. "Can you not figure it out? If you are concerned for their combat capacity or investigative capacity, I can assure you that every single instance of a private stream is an extremely capable force in battle and has a great deal of non-invasive assistance from a skilled researcher and technician at all times. When Private Stream looks at you, two people see you, and one of them is in the process of pulling up all your publicly available information," Herbert assures her. "It's not that. It's their appearance. Ma'am, if you or your forces are not able to maintain professionalism just because a fellow soldier resembles a child to your perspective, then I, and in short order, Lady Basilash, will be very disappointed in you," he says sternly. The fact that his voice maintains its high pitch is taking away from it. So he decides to give her some reassurance. 40% of private stream operatives are in fact full-grown members of shorter races such as Gobes, Cobes, Metak, and the Akiyata. 30% are part of the Deep Stream Initiative, where the use of shrinking techniques allows fully grown and full-size members of larger races to take the appearance of private stream. We have fully grown bull canadors in such outfits. 15% are remote control prosthetic bodies, being piloted by experts well away from the danger, and only the remaining 15% of private stream operatives are like myself, mature members of their species that have undergone rejuvenation to the point that they are physically children again. But regardless of what category a private stream operative is, you must understand that each one is heavily armed and armored to an extent that when the sheer scope of the arsenal has been detailed to a Crimson Hewer matriarch, her opinion was that it was a loadout she wished her incautious children would carry, which I consider a respectable seal of approval. Jalasi says before taking a breath. What is the real issue? You're 30. My 80-year-old son is still finding himself. You are going into places and killing enemy targets. One of the areas we have locked down has a dent in the wall from the bullet that shredded through you. You shouldn't even be near a weapon, let alone handling them with enough skill to counter a long-shot expert with an abjectly inferior weapon. Abjectly inferior? Herbert asks in amusement. In the terms of range, power, and accuracy, yes, your little pistol is abjectly inferior to a high-quality custom rail launcher. In those categories, yes, but I've trained extensively with pistols and understand exactly how to put my shots in places and people who think they're safe, Herbert replies. But that is exactly my point. You are very skilled with a deadly weapon. I understand that by the standards of your species and culture, you are not only an adult, but have been one for a third of your life at minimum. But I am 20 times that and consider myself barely grown. The personal assistant of the Tritite lady considers herself barely grown, Herbert challenges. We're all children smelling of the egg next to the holy primals, she says. But does that make you any less skilled or capable? Herbert pushes her a bit. It does not. She pauses and turns to him before sighing. Right, there are standards. Standards that the humans of the Undaunted are violating flagrantly. Standards we are not physically capable of adhering to or legally required to fulfill. I know, which is why I am uncomfortable with this and dealing with it in the most appropriate way I can rather than simply trying to get your parents to wrangle you home, Jalissa states, and Herbert sighs. Look, we don't have to do this for long so long as we do this properly. The fact of the matter is that we humans are developing at a proper pace, more in line with nature. While we may not have the massive amount of experience to draw from, we do have the same raw instinct that lets us handle things. We are far more than the children we resemble to you. Yes, but the fact I'm seeing child soldiers everywhere does not make this easy, she says, and he nods. I understand. When I decided to take advantage of my situation the way I have, I knew something like this would happen, Herbert says before going at some files on his communicator. It then projects the image of an adorable-looking little girl. She's older than your goddess and has played the role of the innocent daughter in more movies than I've had hot meals. I know, I was a big fan of hers as a child. I was shocked to find out how old she is. Or to hear her talk on an interview, she is a dirty old woman in a 9-year-old body. Yeah, the bit where she had a synth body with a basic logic which made to serve as a fluffer that she can't go to sleep without made me spit out my drink when I heard it, Herbert says in an amused tone. She gets back to that point 50 years later. She has a collection of them, Jalasi says, and Herbert snorts before laughing. That filthy old hag, Herbert exclaims, and they both share a further laugh. That helps. If I think of you more like Miss Rosen, then it's much easier on me. Please don't compare me to that dirty old woman. Herbert pleads, and she laughs again. All right, we seem to have found some common ground here. Can you please spread it to the rest of your, religious army of justice? Or whatever the definition of Lady Basilash's honor guard is. The honor guard of Lady Basalash, Jalasi says simply. Fair enough, Herbert says. Anyways, can you please tell your girls to stop trying to undermine my agents, or at least pretend to take them seriously? I just did, she says, and he pauses before openly considering. Not everyone has their implants easily visible from the outside, as you Undaunted seem to prefer. Hey, repairing things or switching out for a better model is important, Herbert protests. Good enough is often better than the bleeding edge. After all, good enough is reliable and predictable. Like my pistol against an advanced railgun. Well, you certainly are paying attention when people talk to you, Jalasi notes. Ma'am, I'm in intelligence. It's my job to pay attention. he says before nodding back to where the rest of the group is. So are we clear with each other? Yes, but expect to have this conversation again with the others, Jalassi says, and he snorts. Then I'll consider this conversation practice for the following conversations, Herbert says, and they walk back together. It takes all of 3 minutes before Mia Umberclaw places a gentle claw on his shoulder and asks for a few moments of his time. After several other similar conversations of the sort, and things get sorted out, they relocate to the moderately crowded hallway where the blood metal panels are being extracted. The painted panels have had the paint fade by this point and are now slightly raised instead and make a vague pattern of circles forming circles. These panels in particular are left undisturbed. They're doing something, but Modan, Ivan, and every nerd they have can't figure out what it does without feeding more power into it to see. Something that none of the other adepts want anyone to do. For good reason. Whatever the symbol is meant to do, it's primed to go off, and the strange twisted flow it gives to surrounding axiom is disturbing to say the least. Still, it is fascinating how this disrupted flow conceals itself naturally. Stepping outside of this effect, this area appears normal, but the moment you enter, any delusion of it being standard is swept away. Ivan notes, disquieting, I would say. This soul effect means that there could be further blood metal caches anywhere on Centrus, and these axiom eddies, or whatever the official name is, are natural hiding places for all sorts of potential bad behavior. Axiom eddy is an appropriate term. They're also known as bubbles, backflows, and other such things. There are ways to detect and disrupt them, but the process can and will damage delicate equipment and all forms of sensors. Investigator Snow answers, and Herbert nods. Which means that we need to get some excuses to get these disruptions in the air, which is going to be the equivalent of taking a club to every beehive we can find. I'm going to assume you're referred to the ancestors of the Charbis and Volba and not actually attacking their hives, Jalassis says. Yes, Herbert agrees before there's a whoop from nearby. That's a good sound. We got the portal open over here, a nerd cheers. We know where it leads. The other plate, a woman returns. Oh, just let me have this, will you? The nerd demands.